From the outside, their life looked flawless. They were the couple everyone pointed to and said, "That's how marriage should be." 17 years together, and not once had anyone seen them fighting in a cafe or heard shouting through the walls. On the contrary, they had a house in the suburbs, weekend getaways, morning runs side by side. Connor and Vanessa looked like they de-stepped right off the cover of a lifestyle magazine. Connor was 39. He kept himself in such shape that he could compete with men half his age. Broad shoulders, lean muscle, a steady, confident gaze. He was not some businessman with a gut, not the kind of guy who traded the gym for the couch and a beer. He was a leader, the kind of man colleagues and friends listened to. People respected him not just for his strength, but for his composure. Connor never raised his voice, yet one look was enough to put anyone in their place. Vanessa was 37. She matched his disciplined step for step. Yoga, fitness, swimming. Her body seemed frozen in time. Slim figure, well-kept face, always in tone. Her friends envied her. "You look younger than all of us." Men stole glances, women copied her style. Beside Connor, she seemed like an extension of his strength. The perfect wife for a strong man. They had their rituals. Breakfast together, Sunday trips to the market, evening walks. Their life looked as if it had been scripted just for them. Even their disagreements never turned into fights. Vanessa could smile and smooth out any tension, while Connor knew how to joke and defuse a conversation. And yet, cracks began to form where no one else could see. At first, it was small things. Vanessa started lingering after workouts, explaining, "The girls and I went out for smoothies." Then came the Friday girls' nights. She'd leave the house in dresses that looked more suited for a date than for hanging out with friends. Her makeup, bolder than before. Perfume, new, richer, scents Connor had never noticed on her before. He noticed, and he stayed silent. Not because he was weak. Quite the opposite. His strength was in never jumping to conclusions. But his instincts, sharpened by years of discipline and living among people he could read and rely on, were starting to ring the alarm. Vanessa's phone was more often placed face down. She checked notifications in ways that seemed like she did not want anyone to see. And when she came back from her girls' nights, there was a new kind of light in her eyes, something different from the glow after yoga or a casual evening with friends. Connor noticed everything. 17 years together had taught him to read her every move, every look. And now he saw it. Something was changing. The perfect picture everyone admired was beginning to crack. And Connor knew those cracks might just be betrayal. Fridays had started to play out the same way. From the moment she woke up, Vanessa was in unusually high spirits, trying on dresses, testing heels, putting on lipstick a little brighter than usual. All of it supposedly for a girls' night out. Connor watched, and this time he was not going to stay quiet. "Interesting," he said as he walked past her. "Where do you get all this inspiration from every week? For your girlfriends?" Vanessa smiled a little too easily. "What? Yeah, the girls and I are getting together. We found a new restaurant." "Uh-huh." His eyes slid over her dress. "You get dolled up like you re-going on a date just to gossip with your friends?" She froze for a second with her lipstick in hand, then quickly regained composure. "You re-exaggerating. I just wanted to look good." Connor did not reply. He stepped closer, pulled her in, and breathed in her scent. It was not her perfume. It was male, sharp, foreign. He pulled back and looked her straight in the eyes. "And what is this smell?" Vanessa looked away. "Probably something at the gym. Someone must VE spray cologne. You always nitpick the smallest things." "Nitpick?" His tone was calm, flat, and that calmness shook her more than any anger could. "When your phone is always face down and every Friday you leave the house in the exact same mood, that's not nitpicking. That's observation." She whipped around, her voice rising. "You do not trust me? After 17 years? Connor held a pause. "I trust facts. And the facts are, you leave late, you come back smelling like someone else, and you shine like you've been anywhere but with your girlfriends. You re-paranoid," she snapped, though her voice wavered. "I have a right to my own space." He stepped closer, towering over her. "You have a right to your space. You do not have a right to treat me like a fool." Silence dropped between them. Vanessa was the first to look away. She fumbled with her purse, snapping it shut too fast. I am late. The girls are waiting. Go, Connor said evenly. But remember this. I always know when I am being lied to. Do not push your luck. She flinched, but did not respond. The door slammed shut behind her. Connor stood in the quiet of the house. He knew the game had gone from subtle to open. He'd shown her he was watching. And while Vanessa might still believe she was in control, the truth was different. The control had already shifted to his hands. Connor never liked office get-togethers, but that night he gave in. His co-workers had been pestering him for weeks. Come on, relax. Just for once, let loose. Finally, he thought, why not? The hotel restaurant was upscale, with soft lighting, muted music, and long polished tables. The kind of place where people seemed to forget about work and time altogether. His colleagues chatted, ordered wine, laughed over office stories. Connor sat with a glass in hand, listening half-heartedly. His thoughts kept drifting back to Vanessa. It was Friday again. She had gone out for another girls' night, dressed in a new outfit, eyes sparkling. The ritual had become too familiar, and every time, something inside him tightened like a string pulled taut. He leaned back in his chair, let his gaze wander across the room, and froze. Just a few tables away, at the bar, sat Vanessa. He recognized her instantly. The posture, the tilt of her head when she laughed, the movements of her hands. But she was not with her girlfriends. She was with a man. Eric. Connor did not know his name yet, but he would never forget that face. Tall but not broad. Fidgety, like someone trying too hard to look confident. His hand rested on Vanessa's wrist as he whispered something into her ear. She laughed, too loudly, too freely. Connor felt something jab at his chest, but it was not pain, it was ice. Everything fell into place. The Friday girls' nights, the dresses, the foreign cologne. Here it was, right in front of him. No excuses left. No masks. He did not flinch. He sat there with his glass, as if still listening to the conversation at his table, but his eyes never left Vanessa. She leaned closer to Eric, brushing his hand, then his shoulder. Not friendly, not accidental. Too close. Too intimate. A colleague clapped him on the shoulder. Connor, you zoned out? I am fine, he answered curtly, without turning his head. Inside, his instincts switched on, the same ones sharpened in training in life. Analyze. Focus. Control. He was not going to leap up or cause a scene. Weak men lost their heads in moments like this. Strong men collected facts. He watched Vanessa raise her glass, Eric leaning closer than he should. Watched their eyes lock. No trace of friendship there. Every gesture told him the truth. They were lovers. Time slowed. The music dimmed. Voices around him blurred. Connor saw only them. And in that moment, the last shred of doubt vanished. Vanessa stood, Eric's hand pressed lightly to her back, guiding her toward the elevator. They moved without hesitation, without nerves, as if they'd done this before, as if they knew exactly how the night would end. Connor's grip on his glass tightened. Still, he did not move. No scene, not here, not now. There would be a time and a place for that. He lifted his glass as if drinking, but his mind was already working, cold and precise. The hints, the perfumes, the excuses they had to face now. A shape. He had seen them together. He had seen his wife walk into a hotel with another man. The laughter of his colleagues carried on. Sports, work, weekend plans. For them, it was an ordinary Friday night. For Connor, it was the night 17 years of marriage ended. He rose from the table. Guys, I am calling it. Early morning tomorrow. They muttered a few goodbyes. No one stopped him. Connor stepped into the lobby and paused. The elevator doors were closing, taking Vanessa and Eric upstairs. His gaze was hard, icy. He did not rush to catch them. He did not need to. This was not jealousy. This was betrayal. And Connor would deal with it the way only a man who refuses to tolerate lies can. Connor stepped into the lobby as if he were just heading for the coat check. On the surface, he looked calm, straight posture, hands in his pockets, steady stride. But inside, every part of him had tightened, sharpened into cold calculation. He had watched the elevator doors close, carrying Vanessa and Eric upstairs. Most men would have lost their heads in that moment. Connor was cut from different cloth. He never charged blindly. He waited, watched, and struck when the prey did not even realize the trap had already closed. He pretended to check something on his phone as he slowly circled the lobby. The hotel was spacious, with high ceilings, soft lighting, and carpets that swallowed footsteps. To most people it felt warm, welcoming. To Connor, the atmosphere was something else entirely. The walls and mirrors seemed to reflect every move, turning the space into an arena where only 3 players existed: him, Vanessa, and her lover. Minutes later, the elevator doors slid open. Vanessa stepped out, adjusting her hair. Eric held her by the elbow. She laughed softly, but it was too free, too easy, like there was no husband, no family, no 17 years behind her. For her, this night was a game. For Eric, it was a conquest. For Connor, it was a death sentence. They walked to the front desk. Connor stopped a few feet away, angled his body as if he were browsing the tourist brochures. His eyes, though, tracked every movement. "Good evening. Room for 2, Eric said, leaning casually on the counter. Connor caught every word. He watched the clerk smile, swipe the card, and hand over the key. Vanessa stood right beside him, smiling without hesitation. This was not their first time. Too smooth, too confident. Inside, Connor grew quieter. There were no more doubts. No excuses left. The perfume, the clothes, the late nights, all of it now had proof. The betrayal was no longer suspicion. It stood before him in plain sight. When Eric laid his hand on Vanessa's back and steered her toward the elevator, Connor turned and walked to the desk. "Good evening," he said evenly, like any other guest. "I need access to that same room." The clerk looked up, polite, young, already flustered. "I am sorry, sir, but—" Connor pulled his wallet from his pocket and set a bill on the counter. Not brash, but unmistakable. "Let us not waste time. You know exactly what this is about." The young man hesitated, glanced around. Connor's gaze stayed locked on him. It was the same look that made sparring partners lose their nerve in the gym. The same look that settled arguments in the office without another word. "Sir, I am not allowed to—" Connor leaned closer, his voice dropping, hard as steel. "That's my wife, and she just went up there with another man. You going to give me that key, or I'll take this straight to your manager." The clerk swallowed hard. The bill vanished from sight, and seconds later a plastic key card rested in Connor's hand. "Room 504, sir." "Appreciate it," Connor said, sliding the card into his pocket. He turned toward the elevator. His steps were steady, his breathing calm. Inside, he felt the weight of controlled power, not the kind that explodes in rage, but the kind that tightens like a drawn bowstring, waiting to release. The elevator carried him up slowly. Each second was a test of discipline. His head was clear, sharp. Vanessa had chosen her path. Eric had stepped into it willingly, and Connor was about to end it in a way neither of them would forget. When the doors opened, the hallway met him with silence. Soft carpet muffled his steps. He moved past the doors, card in his pocket, shoulders squared, eyes fixed. At that moment, he was no longer a husband wrestling with betrayal. He was the predator closing in on his prey. And he knew the strike was only moments away. The hallway stretched long, lined with identical doors and softened by the glow of wall lamps. Connor walked across the carpet, his steps swallowed in silence. In his hand was the plastic key card he'd gotten from the clerk. Inside, he felt nothing but icy calm. His heart did not race. His breathing stayed steady. It was as if he'd always known this moment would come. At room 504, he stopped. His hand rested on the cold handle, but he did not turn it right away. Instead, he pulled out his phone and dialed his wife's number. The line rang. Then came the voice he knew too well. "Hello." Connor's reply was steady, almost casual. "So, how is girls' night?" A second of silence. Vanessa started to stammer. "Well, the girls we just—" At that moment, the card slid through the lock, the latch clicked, and the door swung open. Connor stepped inside. The room was spacious, white sheets on a wide bed, heavy velvet curtains, the air filled with expensive wine and perfume. Vanessa stood in the middle of it, pale, as if all the blood had drained from her face. Eric, caught in his underwear, fumbled for his pants, desperate to cover himself. Connor closed the door behind him and set the key card down on the nightstand. His voice was low even. "So this is your bar with the girls?" Vanessa clutched her hands to her chest, backing up a step. "Connor, it is not what you think." "Oh, really? And what am I thinking?" He raised an eyebrow, voice still calm. "I am thinking my wife pretends to spend Fridays with her friends, but in reality, she comes up to a hotel room with this man." Eric tried to speak, his voice trembling. "Look, man, let us not do anything crazy." Connor turned his head toward him slowly, as if only now acknowledging him. "You re not my friend, and you re gonna shut your mouth right now." Eric froze, clutching his shirt like a shield. Vanessa rushed to fill the silence. We just ran into each other. It is not what you think." Connor stepped forward, his shadow stretching over them both. "By chance? On a Friday night? In that dress you did not buy for your girlfriends? Reeking of a man's cologne, and with a key for two. All of that just coincidence?" Vanessa bit her lip, her eyes flashing with panic. I was just tired. I needed tired." Connor's laugh was cold. "Tired of what? The house where you have everything? The husband who has been by your side for 17 years? The life other people envy?" Eric fumbled with his shirt. "Look, maybe I should just go, all right?" Connor took one step toward him, and Eric flinched back instantly. "You re not going anywhere until I say so. First we set things straight." His gaze shifted back to Vanessa. She trembled, words faltering, excuses dying on her lips. "You not even come up with a lie," Connor said quietly. "Because it is too obvious." Eric opened his mouth again, but snapped it shut under Connor's stare. That stare was heavier than any punch. "I did not come here for fairy tales," Connor continued. "I came so you could see it for yourself." Your entire web of lies collapsed in 1 second. Vanessa stepped forward, reaching as if to touch him. "Connor, please, let me explain." He pulled back. "Do not touch me. You'll be explaining to a lawyer." He looked at Eric one more time. The man had shrunk into the chair, trying to make himself smaller. Connor smirked with disdain. "This is your man? He not even form a sentence while I am in the room." His eyes swept over the space, settling finally on Vanessa. His voice was cold, final. "Tomorrow your things will be on the porch." Connor stood directly over Eric, staring down at him calmly, without a flicker of rage. His voice was low, firm, each word delivered like a sentence. "So, hero, was she worth it? Tell me, who dragged you here?" Eric swallowed hard, his eyes darting away. His fingers trembled as he fumbled with his belt, hands refusing to obey. I did not mean to," he mumbled. "It is not." Connor took another step closer. "Louder. I asked who brought you here." Eric's eyes shot up for a second, only to drop again. Under Connor's cold stare, he was crumbling piece by piece. "I had nothing to do with it," he finally stuttered. "It was her. She said her husband would never find out. She pushed me into it." Vanessa's head snapped up. "That's a lie. Do not listen to him." Connor did not even glance her way. The corner of his mouth curled into a cold smirk as he said, steady and contemptuous, "There it is. Even your lover throws you under the bus. To him, you re nothing. Just a toy. Easy to use when your husband is not around." The words hit harder than a shout. Vanessa stepped toward him, desperate to speak, but Connor lifted his hand, sharp, final, and she froze. "You want to know what I see?" he said icily. "I see a man so scared he blames a woman. And I see a woman who traded 17 years of marriage for this." Eric paled, squirming in his chair. I thought it was just a fling." "I did not a fling." Connor leaned down, his voice almost a whisper. "Men do not sneak into another man's bed. Men do not pin it all on a woman when things get ugly. You re not a man." Eric dropped his head, beaten like a dog caught underfoot. Vanessa's voice cracked as she tried again. "Connor, please, this is a mistake. I did not mean. I got lost." For the first time, Connor looked at her. There was no anger in his eyes, no pity, only cold clarity. Lost? No. You made a choice. He turned back to Eric. Grab your clothes and get out before I change my mind. Eric scrambled to his feet, fumbling with his shirt and pants. He never once looked at Vanessa. Whatever bravado he had was gone. Only cowardice remained. Connor watched him scurry around the room, then fixed his gaze on his wife. Remember this moment, Vanessa. Even your lover would not stand by you. He was the first to dump all the filth on you. That's the price of your Fridays. His voice dropped to finality. Tomorrow your things will be on the porch. He turned and walked toward the door. His steps were steady, but in that silence they sounded louder than any scream. Connor stepped out of the hotel room and closed the door behind him as if it were the last time he would ever have any connection to that place. The hallway fell silent again, the soft carpet swallowing his steps, and it seemed as though the hotel itself had not noticed what had just happened. But inside Connor, something had broken, a moment when the past snapped off cleanly and became nothing but memory. He descended, stepped out into the cool night air, and breathed deeply. The decision was made. No more talks, no excuses, no, it was not what it looked like. He knew. 17 years had ended right there. At dawn, Connor gathered Vanessa's things. Suitcases, boxes of clothes, her books, jewelry, even her yoga mat. Everything that belonged to her was set at the door. He did not touch what was shared. Only hers. Separate. Clear. So there would be no doubt where the line was drawn. By 8 o'clock, Vanessa was at the doorstep. Her face was a mix of exhaustion, despair, and disbelief. She tried to step inside, but Connor blocked the way. No, he said firmly. You're never coming back into this house. She froze, hugging her shoulders. Connor, please, can we at least talk? We already talked, he said, nodding at the suitcases. Everything that's yours is right here. She tried to reach for him, but he stepped back. Do not. It's over. Her eyes filled with tears, but his stare stayed cold, without a trace of pity. You're the one destroying this, she whispered. No, he said evenly. You did. I just put the period at the end. She did not argue anymore. She picked up one suitcase, then another. She stared at the house, as if hoping he might stop her, but the door behind him stayed shut. Connor watched as she walked down the path to the taxi she had called herself. Vanessa looked back one last time, but he did not move. The door closed, and from that moment on, she no longer existed in his home. The divorce was swift. Connor had a lawyer. Vanessa had no fight left. She did not contest anything. All she had left were her belongings and her memories. She signed the papers without lifting her eyes. The judge read out the decision, and by the end of that day, it was over. 17 years of marriage reduced to a thin folder of documents. Connor walked out of the courthouse first, never looking back. For him, it was simple. Pity in these situations is weakness, and weakness was something he never allowed himself. That evening, he returned to the empty house. The silence that greeted him was the right kind of silence, free of lies, free of double games. He moved through the rooms where Vanessa had once been and felt not emptiness, but lightness, as if he had shed a weight that had been dragging him down. Friends and neighbors asked what happened. You two were the perfect couple. Connor's answer was brief. We were, and that ended the conversation. He did not explain, did not share details. For him, the story with Vanessa had ended that night in the hotel. Everything after was just paperwork. She never crossed his threshold again. No begging, no tears, no attempts to return. Every time she tried to remind him she existed, she hit a cold wall of indifference. Connor moved on. He worked, trained, spent time with his friends. His life did not stop for a single day. His evenings were calm, and his mornings free of the feeling that someone was lying behind his back. Vanessa was left with her suitcases, the same ones he had set outside. Everything they once had dissolved. Everything he had built with her over 17 years, she had destroyed with one lie. And now she paid the full price. Disgrace, loneliness, and the cold back of a man who would never let her in again. Connor had no doubts. He'd done the right thing. A man with dignity does not keep a traitor by his side. He does not beg, does not plead. He closes the door and moves forward. And that's exactly what he did, with the same calm resolve as the night in the hotel when he set the key on the nightstand and spoke his final words. And that's where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed it, do not forget to like and comment. We'd love to discuss this story with you. See you in the next video.